Hello, welcome to Women's World. I am Oyinlola Sally. Today we'll be looking at an issue that lingers in our society, domestic violence. Also, we'll catch up on the latest headlines in the world of women. On Life on Top, we will meet an exceptional woman who recently received the International Women of Courage Award from the U.S. Department of State. And this episode wouldn't be complete without our trend for today. With that, let's go straight to our first issue for today, domestic violence.
Stop. My face feels the hardness of his palm. I dey try to tell him every day. Your show of love not be to dey slap me for face.
Violence is never welcomed, hardly ever expected. Yet to a large percentage of women in the world, violence is a constant nightmare. The National Violence Against Women Survey reports that about 1.5 million women are raped and physically assaulted by an intimate partner annually.
He was hitting the door. So I didn't want to go and open the door because there was no light. There was no way I could see who the person was. Okay, I kept on asking, who is it? Who is it? Nobody answered. And I felt if he was the one that he would have answered, you know, or probably opened the door himself because he has the key to the door. But since that didn't happen, that means it wasn't him. All of a sudden, he continued hitting on the door. There and then I knew that we were not safe because he was hitting on it so hard, like someone wanted to bug a house. Until eventually, the door gave way and he came in. Immediately he came in, we're in the sitting room. You know now, we're fidgeting like maybe this is a thief or something. So he came into the sitting room. He looked, but you know, because it was a shadow I was seeing, I still asked though, who is this? The person didn't answer me. The person now rushed into the sitting room again. He rushed into the bedroom, our own bedroom. So he brought out a belt. I didn't know until he started hitting me because the place was dark. The whole place was dark. So in the course of hitting me, I said, I'm sitting down on my baby. I was pregnant then, no. With this, my last baby. I said, I'm sitting on my baby. He said I should sit down on her. If I like, I should sit down on her until she collapses, that he doesn't care.
All around the world, domestic violence is a gender-based crime, with women being more likely to experience it than men. According to a report by the International Rescue Committee, husbands, not strangers or enemies, are the biggest threat to women in Africa. Fumi Falana, a gender rights advocate, explains.
It's like power show. And sometimes you ask, why will love go so sour to the extent of a man beating up the wife or injuring the wife or even leading to the death of the wife? A woman that you so sometimes profess to love with the whole of your heart.
Victims of domestic violence experience many barriers when leaving abusive relationships. These include fear of the abuser, believing the abuser will take their children, and most importantly, limited financial options. Domestic violence goes beyond physical abuse. It also includes emotional and psychological abuse.
I told you today has been very hectic. It's not been easy with me.
What is this? I made it clear this mango juice.
Mango is a seasonal fruit.
I don't bloody care. Get this thing off my table. Now!
When we see the man, I used to panic. When I see him, that's the person I marry, I will be panic. And whenever he goes out to his work, when he come back, he will be beating. He will beat me because our house is all gates.
and surrounded with barbed wire. We don't used to go out. Stay out for 24 hours.
The media is constantly awash with news of various cases of domestic violence, and in most instances, victims of these abuses lose their lives.
The issue of domestic violence is classless. It is not, it is irrespective of any class or status. Sometimes in Lagos, we heard of a banker that killed his wife. Highly educated, of course, a university graduate or even more. Then again, thereafter, about 2 years ago, last year, heard of an ambassador, Nigerian ambassador from the eastern part of them, that beat the wife up and had to be recalled. Thereafter, we heard of a traditional ruler in my state that beat up his wife and the wife eventually died, and the man was dethroned.
Why exactly do the male folks resort to violence and assault on their partners?
Well, there are so many reasons that can cause domestic violence, but for me, I think the women, most times they fail to understand the fact that the man is the head of the family. They want to challenge the man because of the pressure to get outside there, you know, single girls, and they're trying to be independent and all that, challenging the man and, you know, calling the man names. Before you know it, things will start falling apart.
Sometimes it's caused by the women because they nag. Sometimes they will do things that you as a man will not bear. But it's not good for a man to beat his or his girlfriend, anybody, or even your sister. As a man, you will not be happy when you see another man beating your sister. So likewise, it's not good for you to beat another person's sister.
So basically for me, I think it's about communication, a breakdown or a lack of communication.
Assault and battery is no way to exert authority and superiority. Women who are abused should be encouraged to speak out. Women deserve to be loved and cherished.
That puts domestic violence into a clearer perspective. A few issues were raised in the package, and to help discuss them, I have in the studio Louisa Ekerman from Echoes of Women in Africa and Adaobi Ebuka from Legal Defense and Assistance Project. You're welcome.
Thank you.
We just saw the documentary. Adaobi, from a legal perspective, what are the consequences of domestic violence?
I'll look at the legal framework on domestic violence. You know, domestic violence is something very sad, I would say, because internationally there are conventions which countries had signed and ratified. For example, we still have the UN. Apart from we have the Convention on Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women, which is the CEDAW, which a lot of African countries have signed and ratified.
That's really good.
But the question is implementation. Protection of women is in the law, whereby we're trying to still look at our African culture, where these things are part of our culture. So we just try to protect it, make sure there's confidence, confidentiality, make sure that the man doesn't just go to jail, but at least there are protective orders, there are laws, there are things that can be done in between. And you also look at, it can also come under the fundamental human rights enforcement rules, which is like the general right on torture. I look at constitution of, for example, like Nigeria. Our constitution in section 33 gives everyone right to life, which these women have.
Yes.
You go further to section 34. It talks about rights against any form of torture, inhuman and degrading treatment. These are laws that exist. These are laws that women can access. But the issue really is they are not coming out. Even when they come out, nothing much is being done.
It's really sad. It's really, really sad. It's really sad. Could you tell us some specific cases where perpetrators have been fully persecuted, since we have laws that actually back them up, you know, so that women out there could be encouraged?
Interestingly, I was reading something some time ago in Sierra Leone, I think.
Okay.
There's a law on violence against women.
Wow, that's wonderful.
After about 4 years, it showed that only one person has been prosecuted.
Wow.
Narrowing down to Nigeria,
the thing is, there are cases where you see a lot of, after long years of trial and all that,
I can imagine.
you see where the man is given a year,
yes,
an option of fine. He can pay the fine because he has the money.
Louisa, you have a wonderful NGO. So how has it helped victims of domestic violence?
Yes, Echoes of Women in Africa initiative respond to victims of domestic violence. And in responding to victims of domestic violence, the first thing is the safety of the victim.
Oh.
You must ensure that the victim is safe if it's a case of threat to life. Maybe it has been a case of repeated violence and there are grievous bodily harm. So you take out the victim from that environment to a shelter. Then you give the victim medical aid. Then if it's not a case of grievous bodily harm or threat to life, battery and all that, of course, the victim needs counseling.
Oh.
Because a perpetrator or an abuser uses dominion and control and fear, guilt, intimidation, harassment. These are the things that subjugate the victim. So such a victim needs deep counseling to come out of that. She has to go through a series of counseling, knowing that this kind of abuse is not her fault, because most abusers will always blame the victim for the kind of abuse they receive. Many abusers have gone through bad childhood, they have gone through bad training, they've seen their mothers being battered. So growing up as men,
it's
they
really
too
sad,
become begin to abuse their partners, blaming their partners for such problems.
So let's quickly chip in on what she has said, you know. The beauty of some of the laws that are coming in place now. I think we have something similar in South Africa, we have something similar in Nigeria. Let's say state in Nigeria, Lagos State, there is a law, domestic violence law. The beauty of it is that a third party, we, CSOs, health workers, doctors, nurses, neighbors, can't bring an action on behalf of the woman. So you see somebody who is going through abuses in her home, and you feel you can bring an action, you can, but with the woman's permission. That's where the problem is, to get consent.
I see.
But we're now looking at how we can constitute, because the law has exceptions to the consent, where there is insanity, where she's unable. So we're looking at cases where the courts can determine what you mean by unable to give consent. So it depends on how you constitute it and how you come before the court. You, as a third party, can get relief for her.
Yes. That's wonderful. Thanks for coming today. Really appreciate your presence. It was very insightful. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
There we have it. No woman deserves to be physically abused. It's better to speak out before it's too late. Coming up, we meet an amazing woman on Life on Top, and on Trends, we see an old fashion that has made a comeback. But first, let's see what events made the headlines this past week in the world of women.
6 months after being shot by the Taliban for advocating girls' education, Malala Yousafzai returns to school in the United Kingdom. The 15-year-old has become an international figure as a symbol of resistance to the Taliban's effort to deny women's rights in Pakistan. She described her return to school as the most important
wants
day
to be
of
a
her
normal
life.
teenager.
I am a student, and it is the happiest thing for me that yes, I'm living my life, the old life. I'm going to school and I'm learning.
Yousafzai was taken to Britain for specialist treatment after she was shot in the head at point-blank range by Taliban gunmen in Pakistan last October. In India, 4 men have confessed to raping a Swiss national. Dilip Iyer, the Deputy Inspector General of Police, says 5 suspects have been arrested, but 1 is still at large. The rape of the 39-year-old Swiss woman on the night of March 16th has turned the spotlight anew to the security of women in the world's largest democracy. Still in India, fashion design students have designed the country's longest Western bridal costume, running over 490 feet and weighing more than 30 kilograms. One of the students walked through India's busy streets wearing the white embellished costume with over 500 colleagues carrying the train behind. The wedding dress had a long train made up of sateen and crepe material enriched with jacquard weave floral patterns. A fashion design student, Akana, said the design is inspired from Queen Victoria's marriage.
This is all about India's longest western bridal wear. It is inspired from Queen Victoria's marriage. This is all of ivory colors, and this the girl is wearing is nearly 150 meters long, that is 473.90 yard long.
The dress was jointly made by students and teachers of the fashion department.
She was one of the women honored by the U.S. Department of State with the 2013 award of the International Women of Courage. She's passionate, courageous, and ready to lay down her life for what she believes in. Let's meet Dr. Joe Oke Odumakin.
She is a symbol of resilience, determination, and fearlessness. Joe Odumakin, Nigerian human rights activist and women's rights advocate, is internationally acclaimed for her contributions to the survival of democracy in Nigeria. Alongside 9 other outstanding women, Joe was recently presented with the U.S. Department of State International Women of Courage Award by Michelle Obama and the Secretary of State, John Kerry.
The quality audience that we had, people were ready to come and honor us, to come and see us. And by the time our citation was read, and then Michelle Obama was standing, listening, clapping, and Secretary Kerry was the one that, read the citation.
Arrested or detained 17 times, but she has never stopped crusading for the rights of the Nigerian people. Her exceptional courage, strength, and leadership in tirelessly advocating for human rights, social justice, and women's equality and advancement in Nigeria, Dr. Josephine Odumakin is a woman of courage.
And at that point in time, there was that thunderous applause from all the people that we had seated in that hall. And Michelle Obama took the award, raised it. She was also continuously giving applause, when the thing was on. And at the end, when she said, "Well done, you deserve this," I just felt that, honestly, I felt so encouraged.
Growing up, she had her sights set on a different path.
I wanted to be a nun because my parents were staunch Catholics, and missionaries taught me Christian religious studies, secondary school. So I just wanted to be married to Jesus. But my father then threatened he was going to disown me. He was in the UK. He said he was going to print my obituary. Since I don't want to procreate, I was too young. It was too much for me to comprehend. I then got to the University of Ilorin, and then the Reverend Sister thing was still in my memory. And then friends kept calling me Reverend Sister. So a lecturer mentioned my matriculation number with 2 others. Then after the lecture, we were going to check out for the lecturer in the lecture room. When we then got to the office, my script was put down. I said, "You're a brilliant girl. Why do you want to be Reverend Sister?" I said, yeah, I want to be married to Jesus. He said, "You want to be married to Jesus? Have you read about Martin Luther King?" I said, "Yeah, a bit." Malcolm X, Rosa Parks, mentioned series of books, and then said, "I will start reading, and every fortnight to be discussing." That was around 1985. And then three months after that, the position of Secretary Women in Nigeria was vacant. We were 3. The manifesto night was a very great night. I was the second person who spoke. I quoted all the authorities that I knew on earth. After students hailed me, the other person stepped down, and that was how it began.
Becoming the Secretary of Women in Nigeria Kwara State Branch, it launched her into activism. This rough path she has endured for 25 years.
Well, when I started off, it was during military dictatorship, and then there was no constitution. Military would ordinarily use decree, there was violations of fundamental human rights, and at any point where one is going out for a rally, the thought of not coming back home, even alive, will be a thing that it became a recurring decima. And then I was baptized several times. Baptized as serious beating, kicking, having my clothes torn, being thrown inside the gutter, being in detention without my clothes on.
Women Arise for Change Initiative, her organization, focuses on issues of domestic violence and gender inequality.
Their frustration on the women folk. All the cases that we have recorded, Women Arise for Change Initiative, they've recorded as in terms of violence, more than about 4,000 cases. Only 2 men reported that they were beaten by their wives. All the others are women. And you find out that corruption, people cannot eke a living, unemployment. Again, people, especially some of our men folk, some of them suffer from low self-esteem, and they vent their anger on the women. You can't imagine when women will come and we tell them it's not boxing rings, it should be homes. Africans must rise above domestic violence. They must rise above archaic culture, a culture that says somebody must be submissive, you must continuously hit the person hard. And men should also realize that there's no competition. Relationship should be complementary.
Now she is poised for greater exploits in the future.
But this will propel me to do more, greater things. It will also encourage me in knowing and realizing the fact that I do not stand alone. The US stands with me side by side, and Nigerians really appreciate a lot.
Africa is a continent rich in history and fashion. On Trends, we see how Nigerian women combine the two.
Fashion is greatly influenced by things of old as much as the new. It should then be of no surprise that the past is hurriedly catching up with the present. Today, we take a look at Nigerian women rediscovering their love for what is popularly known as At the mention of Oleku, what automatically comes to mind as short-sleeved buba and short iro? Oleku is a Yoruba expression from Western Nigeria which literally means this is serious, or really hot, or so elegant, depending on how it is being used. The name Oleku became famous in the 70s when a popular love movie was named after it. Still baffled? Well, not for long. Toby Martins, a fashion designer, spoke with Wunmi Obanao to discuss the history of Oleku and why it is making a comeback.
I would like to know where Oleku came from and why it is making a comeback.
I think from my experience and what I gather, Oleku was very in the 70s. I remember the old album of my mom, and I remember the fact that all the photos, she had a short sleeve buba with a formal semin mini iro going on, and I never thought I was going to come back in fashion. So it's very interesting to see back, and back with a bang as well. I think Oleku is definitely inspired by the fact that all things have become new again. Even from the Western side of fashion, you see that there's a lot of classic styles going on, and I think when the trend hit Africa and hit Nigeria in specific, we just went back to our own African dress code and then brought it back and made it modern, and I just think it's really fantastic.
So what is it about Oleku that people admire so much? What appeal does it hold?
I think it's like the simplicity of the style, based with the diversity. Like it's quite diverse. So you can actually mold Oleku to become anything that you want it to be. Oleku can be combined as your Iro and Buba classic with the Ankara print. But now we see that for even Ashwebi for weddings, people are doing Oleku with French lace and raw silk. There is the Oleku of dry lace and Ankara, and it's just taking a whole new dimension. And I think it's because of how versatile it is and the fact that anybody creative can build on that simple platform and make it their own.
Oh yeah, mama, oh, get your kille, oh, daddy me, oh, the time don't come, oh, 'cause I'm flying high.
Oleku, but we've done this in Swiss jacquard. Now, this fabric is very colorful. The jacquard print is very nice because it then shows another pattern on the colors that are happening. So I think that's very refreshing. A lot of people know jacquard is quite a classic fabric, and it was worn a lot as well in the 70s, 80s, 90s. But definitely this fabric is classic and is here to stay. It has different versions that it has appeared on a catwalk, and so it's a very versatile fabric indeed. Now, this fabric is more drapey because this is Swiss jacquard. It's quite soft, but it's very good with a nice full buba sleeve. It then allows the drape to become very fashionable, and then it allows the pattern work of the fabric to show. What we've just done is very basic beading because we don't want to. The fabric is quite bright. We don't want to take anything away from it. We don't want to overdo it, and so we've just used a purple color and just place the stopper on top. Very simple, and done that only on the orange. You're creating a contrast between the orange and the sequins. So this is your basic Oleku, but worn again in a different way.
Would these fashions still be around in a year's time? No one knows, but for now, Oleku is here and it's here to stay.
Just before we go, let's remind you of how special you are. A woman is the full circle. Within her is the power to create, nurture, and transform. Diane Marichild. And in the words of Eleanor Roosevelt, no one can make you feel inferior without your consent. We'd like to hear from you. For comments and questions, send us a tweet at TVC Women's World. With that, we have come to the end of today's episode. Don't forget to tune in next time. I am Oyinlola Sally.